Start now.
Yes, Aisha, please begin.
Yesterday we studied about the craft of strategy making. In life, we often encounter contradictory ideas. For
Aisha,
example,
some problem in your mic. Your voice is not reaching us.
uh, now, sir, is it clear? Is it
Yes,
audible?
now it is clear.
So, in life, we often encounter contradictory ideas. For example, there's an adage which says that think before you leap, which means we first have to plan and then move ahead. On the other hand, there's another adage which says that action drives thinking, which means that we have to first work upon on it. We have to do work and then our mind gets activated. So in life, we first act, then think and act, and then it is a much more refined act. So it's a cyclic process rather than a linear one. For what happened is that we have our intended strategies. So is intended strategies are those something we want to have, we want to work for, but most of our intentions remained unrealized. On the other hand, there are deliberate strategies. So deliberate strategies are those that are those we work for. For example, Sergey is personal example that he wrote civil services exam and qualified prelims, but was unable to qualify the main exam. So that part remained unrealized. So it's kind of a cycle that there is intended strategy, deliberate strategies, and based on those efforts, we have our realized strategies. So there are some things which we do unconsciously in life without giving too much of thought into it and without, for example, the things we do in our pastime or as a leisure activity. For example, Sir's mother was a voracious reader. She used to read her to the kids, and so therefore, Sir and his siblings got involved with literature and developed a love for that subject. So this whole process could be understandable with an example that when Sir was asked to opt a subject of specialization in English. So as he's from a science background, so he was suggested to choose operations. So he opted for material management, quality, and system analysis, which was very tough. But at the time of research, he opted for stress management, which was a very good subject for him because he had studied literature. And in literature, we study behaviors of the human behavior. So that was a very fruitful background for in his research work. So this whole process could be understandable that we rely that his realized strategy was based upon the combination of his originally intended and what happened to in his course of life. So there was emergent strategy, which just happened like that. That is unplanned strategy that arises in response to the opportunities and challenges. So then we discussed about the two models of strategy making. For example, these are the two models: planning model and crafting model. Planning model is a very structured and orderly model. It is a conscious process. We have to first analyze our internal, external environment, and then after analyzing and studying, we just implement our strategies with much attention. In this, we first think and then act. On the other hand, the crafting model is a very fuzzy and intuitive process. In this, implementation and formulations just cannot be segregated, they are merged. It is a very fluid and creative process. It would be understandable with the example of potter. For example, that when a potter is thinking that he would make an oval pot, but unfortunately, with different circumstances, at different point of time, he just built up the cylindrical pot. So life is like that. So we all are molding our life, and some people believe that there is a role play of destiny in it. And for example, in Bhagavad Gita, there is a mention of Nishkam, which means that we have to work, we have to put efforts without thinking of the reward, and the one who wants to give will give. So thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you.
Abhishek Washni, are you there, Abhishek?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Please present
Am
your.
I audible?
Yes, we hear you. Please start.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. A very warm and cheerful good morning to one and all present here. My name is Abhishek Vaishne, and today I am here to present the yesterday's class recap. Yesterday, we came to a conclusion that the life strategy means what we actually do in our life is the combination of an intended strategy plus what happens to us during the course of our life. I have used two terms, intended strategy and the what happens to us in course. Let me explain it. Intended strategy means what we wanted to do at the start of our journey. Means what we have in our mind at the start of our journey. Then second thing is what happens to us during the course of our life, because life has its own challenges and we cannot refuse the challenges life throws at us. And these challenges are being referred to as the deliberate strategies and the unconscious efforts which we put on it. So, and sir gave us his own example that he at the starting intended strategy means that he came to AMU with the intention of doing MBBS. This is his intended strategy, but later on, due to unforeseen circumstances and his unconscious efforts and his love for literature and many other things, led him, turned the tide for him, and he takes MBA as his part of the life, and he loves to take it. And at the end, sir asked us which part means the intended part of the deliberate part dominates us in our life. Sir, at the end, answer it in a way that both there must be a mix of both, in which because if the intended part dominates, it shows that we do not respond to the challenges life throws us, and on the other hand, if the deliberate part dominates in our life, it shows that the is a life is free flow. It is a free flow for us. We do not consider, we do not have a definite plan for us, and we lack in the planning part. Thank you. That is all from my side.
Thank you, Abhishek. So these were good reflections. Uh, Both of them did a good job. Aisha especially was very articulate, and in terms of content, I think both of them were placed at the same level. But maybe Aisha's comfort level with the language was better, so she appeared more articulate. But Abhishek also did a good job. Maybe just fine tuning of your language will bring you to the same level. Maybe Aisha will have to, you know, be more conscious of her position when she speaks, especially in this online mode. So if we maintain too much of a distance with the mic, and if we keep varying that distance, then others may have difficulty uh, because there will be a lot of variations in the pitch of the voice then. So just be careful on that account. But overall, you did a good job. Both of you did a good job. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I have yesterday requested all of you to reflect on your own life, and in that context, if you can sum up some of your own learnings from the last two classes that we have had. So Sana has already commented on this, but I would like it to be very crisp, like Zainab's one is vision without a strategy remains an illusion, isn't it? So In fact, that vision is more of a daydream, not even dream, a daydream, isn't it? So, yes, very right. We have to have a action plan. How do we reach to where we are, where we want to reach. Now, in the context of this idea that whether we shape life or life shapes us, both the ideas appear valid, isn't it? In fact, I may share with you a couplet. It says that कुछ लोग थे जो वक्त के सांचे में ढल गए और कुछ लोग थे जो वक्त का सांचा बदल गए. So there are people who shape life. We are studying in AMU. Uh, and you know how Sir Sayyid shaped the life of so many, isn't it? What would have been our fate if AMU as an institution was not created? So there are some people who shape life. This Hamza's quote is also very crisp and very inspiring. Aspire to inspire before you expire. Isn't it? Very good. So, but I may share with you a contradictory idea also, a couplet which says that किसी के वास्ते राहें कहाँ बदलती हैं, तुम अपने आप को खुद ही बदल सको तो चलो. So the couplet seems to say that the world around us is fixed and we have to change and we have to adjust. This also sounds a good idea. So, what do you think the strategy you should follow for your own career? Will it evolve, especially in the COVID kind of situation? Can you foresee a stable career in the context of so uncertain times? This is a question which we need to ask. So there is a lot of experimentation that would be required at this stage, and I will come back to this question. But one more reflection which I may share with you, that this combination of management and literature. Apparently, as I told you, I was reading literature just for my pleasure. It was a pastime. It was a good time spent, especially when you were exhausted with your regular stuff. So the regular course was you pick up a magazine or a book and you start reading anything you feel like reading. Sometimes anything that you can lay your hands on. It was not a very conscious thing. But gradually I developed an interest in literature. An incident, sorry, incidentally, when I went to IIM Ahmedabad in 1992, there was a teacher called Sampath Pal Singh sir. He was a retired professor from National Institute of Bank Management, and IIM Ahmedabad had requisitioned his services for teaching primarily finance because he was primarily a finance professor. But he had one more passion and he started a course there which gradually became very popular over there. And the course was Leadership Through Literature. The title was different, Leadership, Vision, Meaning and Reality. But core was, it was an attempt to learn leadership through literature. And during the course of that, I mean, very unique kind of experience, we explored many pieces of literature. Like we read Othello, we read a Nigerian author's book, Things Fall Apart, Chinua Achebe's book. We read Tolak by Grish Karnad. We read All My Sons by Arthur Miller and such literature. I mean, very varied kind of literature. And then this idea struck and remained with me that yes, leadership, I mean, literature and management could be combined. And this idea remained there as a kind of back at the back of my mind. And fortunately, 5 years back, when we were attempting to remodel our syllabus, I proposed that why don't we include such a course in our MBA curriculum? And finally, that course has been introduced. And I and Dr. Zareen are teaching that course for second year students. So when you will be in the second year of your program, you will have an exposure to those literature. So are you getting a feel of how dots connect, isn't it? So I think this is something which we also need to appreciate, that if we indulge in so many apparently unrelated activities, but if we do it with involvement and passion, some unique cocktail emerges out of it. And that is life's beauty, that we prepare our own concoction of life through our own efforts and the opportunities that life throws at us. Anybody would like to say anything on this account?
Sir, we may be not able to connect the dots now, but surely later on.
Yes, that's a very fair point. That's a very fair point. Maybe Zareen ma'am, I will just now share with you a video, and if you can run it to for the students, that would be great. Will it be possible to run the video? Zareen ma'am, can I
Yes,
do
sir.
it from here only?
Sir, I can open the slide for you.
Acha.
Just a second.
Please check whether it has reached you, or in that, if it is not, it has not reached you, then I will run it from here only. This is actually a speech which Steve Jobs delivered uh, just, I think, 1 or 2 years back before he passed away.
May I play, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Zareen ma'am, voice is not reaching us.
So it is full from my side. Um, so is it with everybody? Is everybody not able to hear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but it's full from my side. I don't know why is that so.
This is the closest I've ever gotten to a
So
college
it's still
graduation.
the same.
Audible.
Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Thank you. I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why'd I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me under one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle. My third story is about death. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything you thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes. I lived with that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestines, put a needle into my pancreas and got a few cells from the tumor. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that when they viewed the cells under a microscope, the doctors started crying because it turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery, and thankfully, I'm fine now. This was the closest I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades. Having lived through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty than when death was a useful but purely intellectual concept. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It's life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called the Whole Earth Catalog, which was one of the Bibles of my generation. It was created by a fellow named Stuart Brand, not far from here in Menlo Park, and he brought it to life with his poetic touch. This was in the late 60s, before personal computers and desktop publishing, So it was all made with typewriters, scissors, and Polaroid cameras. It was sort of like Google in paperback form 35 years before Google came along. It was idealistic, overflowing with neat tools and great notions. Stewart and his team put out several issues of the Whole Earth catalog. And then, when it had run its course, they put out a final issue. It was the mid-1970s, and I was your age. On the back cover of their final issue was a photograph of an early morning country road, the kind you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you were so adventurous. Beneath it were the words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their farewell message as they signed off. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I've always wished that for myself. And now, as you graduate to begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you all very much.
So was that okay, sir? So can you please unmute the mic, sir? Yes. So was the voice okay? Okay.
I think yes, it was very clear. It was very clear. Can we have some reflections from students? Razan, you want to say something?
Sir, may I say something?
Yes, Abuzar.
Sir, I want to know that what was the purpose of showing that video? Steve Jobs is a uh, good manager or whatever he was. He invented something. So how that it is going to affect us or teach us?
Let us start with his final message. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Yes, sir.
What could be his message there?
So may I say something?
Yes, Keshu.
Sir, I think that whenever we achieve something in our life, we become a little bit arrogant or egoist in that.
Mm-hmm.
And we should not let that success to our head. We should keep it, just let it be in the same way and just keep going on, looking forward and learn something new, looking some new things, make ourselves new and do what we love in our life that really want to make it happen. What he wants to convey us.
So, what is the meaning of this very strange expression which he came up with? Stay foolish.
So he wanted to say, yeah.
Yes, Nidal, you say that commit mistakes. Eh?
So I think
Anybody?
he wanted to say that by staying foolish, we should have the courage to follow our heart and intuitions.
I read a statement. It went like this: that the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man insists on changing it. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. So maybe this is the message which Steve Jobs has for us, that have this foolishness. अगर हम एक यहाँ का कोलोकियल एक्सप्रेशन यूज करेंगे, इतना दीवानापन दीवानगी होनी चाहिए आदमी में कि उसे यकीन हो कि वो दुनिया को बदल सकता है, चाहे उसे दीवानगी
Yes,
कहा
sir.
जाए. ठीक है, बट यू शुड हैव दैट फेथ दैट यू कैन चेंज द वर्ल्ड. और अगर आपने अपने इर्द गिर्द थोड़ी सी दुनिया बदल दी, वही आपका मेजर कंट्रीब्यूशन करेंगे. Isn't it? So that faith keeps us going. So that is the foolishness part of it. Stay hungry. Yes. All those expressions which you are sharing, be open to ideas and have a craving for new ideas. Because then only we learn new things. So stay hungry and stay foolish. That's one message. And then from his second story, comebacks is just one part of it, I think. More important part is that I think this is a very important lesson which we need to discuss here. That why he comes back? He comes back because he loved what he was doing, isn't it? Although he was down and out, he was fired from his own company, and you can imagine how painful it must have been. And yet he starts over, all over, afresh. So somebody says that, can I read this last chat again? Can someone read it for me? This chat? Yes. Do what you love and love what you do. Now, just tell me, do we really are able to get something which we fully love? Saying this, that follow your heart, follow your passion is very fine. But, in the present times, when people are struggling for survival, will we be able to get something which we truly love? For example, somebody may truly love, let us say, guitar playing. Can we make a career out of it? So there are people who have followed unconventional paths.
Assalamualaikum, sir.
Yes.
So I would like to say that this is not always possible that we will achieve what we love to do. But sir, I would like to give an example of Antata. He said in his one of his songs that he loved to play piano, but somehow he came back from USA to India and become the chairman of Tata Sons. And when he retired at this stage, he is again learning piano at this stage, and he is doing what he used to love.
That is fine, but what we are discussing presently is at this stage of your career when you have to earn a living, isn't it? And the context of Steve Jobs and our own context, still we are an economy of scarcity, where jobs are scarce. So, will we ever get a job which we truly love? For example, suppose, in fact, let us take my own case. You might have got a feeling that I enjoy teaching, but is it so that I enjoy every part of my job? For example, let us take evaluation work, which we teachers end up doing, isn't it? It is, if you look at it from my perspective, it is one of the most boring thing. Reading same set of questions, 120 copies. Do you think it is very engaging thing? I have to, as very rightly somebody said, I have to love what I have to do. Then only I can do a good job. No job will give you this thing on a platter that take what you love and leave what you don't love. So good that you get what you love, but it is more important that we love what we do. And those who say that we will do what we love and insist on that only, I am sorry, they may not be able to make a good career out of it. Because sometimes we have to leverage our full strength. When I'm evaluating the copies of my students, I am actually making a judgment on their potential. Should I do a lousy job? Even if it sounds boring to me, should I not give my 100% in it? So, are you getting my point? No job in the world is created which is, just creativity, which is just passion and enthusiasm, and you do everything which you like. No, it is not like that. That is why Edison said this: creativity is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. पसीना बहाना पड़ता है. Isn't it? So I think this is a message which to me is very important. And don't you think this fellow must have worked his heart out for creating what he finally created? Okay. So don't have this notion that we will follow we will do what we like. No, it never happens like this. You have to like what you get. Then only you can do a good job. Then the first story, the connecting the dots part of it. Let us reflect on this also. What is the message over there? Keep trying. Keep trying. And if you try with involvement and passion, something good will come out of it. Dots will connect. Have that faith. Isn't it? I attended a course in 1992 on literature. Finally, I could create it for my own department in 2015. So the dots will connect, provided we persevere. That's, I think, the message of the first story. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.